Good sign.
Or with gluttons for punishment.
That's right. Did he say what I think he said? Better come back and find out. So, from what I understand, usually things start at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and then it was printed that it was going to start at 1:30, and so now it's the midpoint. So we'll get started, but I will not be surprised if fairly soon more people will come or some people will leave. Just depends on how things go. But a transition time. And so as this is about spirituality, spiritual work, let's do a quick attunement. And many people have their own ways of doing that, but you can have your feet on the floor. It's nice to have your back straight. What we're talking about with that straight back is your antenna, your spine. Breathing energy into your body, feeling your spine, feeling the antenna, your own spiritual antenna. And as you breathe, we ask for inspiration, light, love, wisdom. Thank you for this time together, a time to connect, a time to breathe together, which is conspire. Thank you. So I have a little bit of music accompaniment at this moment. I'm not sure who can hear it, who cannot. Who cannot hear it? Okay, because it's relatively low, but a little bit of peaceful music in the background. And it's just to distract you. Just in case, I don't say anything interesting, then you might find nice music.
Put that in review.
Yeah.
Good.
It was good. It was nice music. I don't think he's a musician, though. So, as I had said this morning, I hope to present to you today a buffet. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Many of the themes that I talk about and write about in my books, I've got these 2 volumes on the inner journeys, cosmic sojourns. And then the subtext to this is life-transforming stories, adventures, and messages from a spiritual hypnotherapist case book. I told the title to my book to someone, says, that is a long title. Well, that's it. The buffet. And what is this about? It's the spiritual journey, and a journey that each and every one of us has already taken. And whether you're a young soul early on the path, and all of this is still quite new and interesting, and you're excited and stimulated, or if you've been on the road for a while, and this is your 60th life upon the earth, says, oh man, I am so tired of this. I've been here, done that, but I do come back for the food. Many reasons to come down. So a lot of this is based upon my work with reincarnation. And I've been a past life regressionist for 4 decades. And so a lot of the work that I've done here is accumulated ideas, information, stories, anecdotes that I have learned from my clients. And as Michael Newton said when he was writing about life between life, he said, I'm glad that my patients brought me to the party, because it's really fascinating, it's inspiring, it's on so many levels. what this is all about, and it makes sense because what are we talking about? Religion, faiths, beliefs. We're all looking for, why are we here? What is this about? What about also my family? Was I supposed to be with my blood family? How about those karmic lessons? What is karma? And the Akashic records, it's like, what is going on here? So all very good, very interesting, very important questions, and then lessons. And I'm trying my best, in these 2 volumes, and I've got some more books coming up, to kind of share some things that I have culled from 40 years worth of doing this stuff, as well as a lot of the readings that I've had, philosophy studies. I took a great keen interest in Hinduism, for instance, and found a lot of answers in there, because outside of the Western tradition, Hinduism does include past lives. It talks about reincarnation and astrology. And we're talking about thousands of years worth of ideas and perspectives like that, and how it all fits in together. So I found a lot of solace and wisdom in the Hindu perspectives, including the various phases of man, phases that everybody would go to, because there is this sense of eternity with Hinduism and with our soul perspective anyway, way outside of what normally we think of as the limitations of time. And for instance, from the Hindu perspective, the higher goal is that we return to the Godhead. We return to the One. We return to Brahma. And we've got time. No rush. You could take your time. Next lifetime, that's good. And there's something like really kind of relaxing about that. Because they say that just like the drop of water in the rain that goes into the creek, that turns into the river, it's going to the ocean. We're all going to the ocean. So, if you're a drop of rain right now, or if you're in a little creeklet, it's all fine. That's where you're supposed to be, and it's okay. And along the ways, there are the classic differentiations of what are the roles that we can play in this game of life. And they talk about specifically the young student. And by the way, the student can be of any age, but that they're talking about these kind of like phases of experience that people do, and some people can be their students their whole life long, which I think I'm one of those. Then there is the phase of the family life, and then they put their time and energy into, that's what your mission is right now. You're supposed to be working on the family, having children. And this is a very noble effort, very important, and very spiritual thing, to have a family and to take care of them and to be responsible. And then there is a phase, a time of reflection. It could be a whole lifetime even meant to that. And that brings up like monks and nuns and people who are disciples and dedicated to that. And then the last phase would be the monk phase. And this is the person who renounces things and renounces the life and even renounces the family, because it's just time for him or her, and it's time to dedicate yourself to really finding God. And you can find God, of course, and they'll say that many times in all of these other phases of life and different types of things that people can get into. But ultimately, when you are totally dedicated in that monk phase, you breathe it, you feel it, you absorb it, you read the books, the Upanishads, the Vedas, and so forth, and that is the focused dedication of that. Another thing that I like about the Hindu perspective back to that, again, that sense of time, the great expanse of time, is that there can be the sense of the eternity. And they watch how the mountains, like the Himalaya mountains, and once they kind of like are dissolved and they one day they will be like nice and some hills, that's the type of time that their God, Brahma, Vishnu, that's the way that they're looking at time. I mean, that's eons, that's millions of years worth of time, and so, yeah, it gives you certainly a different perspective on things. Well, in a spiritual perspective, you can come on in anyway. Just come on in. And along the way, there are the different yogas. And yogas are basically exercises that people can get into in their particular path. And another thing I really like about that could be more physical yoga, it can be a breath yoga, raja yoga of ceremonies and rituals, and also the one that I follow is jnana yoga, and that is the path of the mind, of wanting to understand, what is this about, and taking the time and effort to, follow the path and read the books and, compare, sift things out. So everybody, however, does have their own yoga, and kind of like a variation of that theosophical idea, how should we meditate? And there's prescriptions for that and techniques for that. But then from another perspective, as I say, the theosophical one, there is what's called the life meditation. And that means you don't have to sit someplace and, for 1 hour or 2 hours and follow your breathing or concentrate upon your navel. You can have a life meditation in which, as I'm walking down the street, especially when I'm by the beach, here's a new idea, a new perspective, and wow, and that fits into that, and now I understand, and that is a meditation too. But it's not, this classic meditation of, I have to sit down and cut everything off, it's like, wow, so it's like freeze the possibilities and options of meditation. Yes.
If I can say something, just be awake,
Mm-hmm.
be conscious.
You want me to be awake?
No, that's. I fell for that.
These hecklers.
Breathe.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, be awake. That's what it really is all about. And the awakened path is the path to walk. But again, how do you awaken? And again, Hinduism, as I said, I was fond of for all these reasons and more. But again, I've learned so much from Buddhism, Taoism, and so forth. I believe truly, in an eclectic manner, that all of these different faiths have got something to do, something to share, knowledge, and if I might, which is why I also use the word buffet. I'll take a little bit from this, a little bit from that one, and kind of create my own sense of, what do I believe in? And I think, this particular faith over here, they've got some really good ideas. I like that. There's some odd ones. I think I will forget them. And create our own, version of that, kind of with some people with their computers, where you build your own computers. I'll take the one with the big hard drive, I like the speakers, no, I don't do the video games. You don't have to do that. But you build up your own, PC, and I think we as conscious, choosing individuals, that's a lot of what we are doing and can do, to create our own hardware and software. This morning I was talking about, how we can get some of the software, some of the ideas to us. We have to be very careful that we're not just taking everything in, and just because it has withstood the test of time doesn't mean it should be honored. Some traditions are really forgettable. Okay. In fact, I heard this one thing here not too long ago that I thought was very clever. Wish I would have come up with it myself, but I will pass it on. And it is a tradition is peer pressure by dead people. Is that good? Yeah. And what are we taking in? That's the big thing. I mentioned it also this morning, but there's a few new people here, so I wanted to also present from the Edgar Cayce perspective the 3 dimensions. And those of you who have already heard this, already know about it, you just go to sleep right now. I'm talking to those others who would really like to know why we're here on the earth. So the 3 dimensions from the Cayce perspective is, 1, we have this sense of space. And typically, especially in high school science classes, this sense of width by depth by height. Those are the 3 dimensions that one can say is in a cube. And then that cube is just a sign of the of space, and that in space, according for Cayce, is just 1 dimension. The second dimension is time. And I have heard that time is God's way of making sure that not everything happens at once. Space and time, and the third dimension, according to Edgar Cayce, is patience. And that adds a new, more level, more serious tone to patience. And how many people here would have sometimes issues or problems with your patience? It's called impatience. Yeah, it's a classic thing. It just shows it's just one of the things we have to deal with as humans. It's part of the deal down here, whether you like it or not. You did sign up for it. But also, from the Cayce perspective, we are dealing with, in our soul's journeys, from past lives. This is Cayce, remember. They are remembered in our emotional centers. So the emotional likes and dislikes, the things you're attracted to, things you don't like, the things that you really want of an emotional nature, very likely they were planted in the past as an earthling. Okay? Then we have our life experiences, we come to the point of death, we go into spirit, and then we go to certain places. And one of the cool things I liked about the Edgar Cayce readings is that we have interplanetary sojourns. So our souls then go to the dimensions, to the environs, as Cayce would say, of Mercury, of Jupiter, of Neptune, of Venus. And then we bring back the lessons from those orbs, from those dimensions, and those are the mental inclinations. So again, past lives, emotional, interplanetary sojourns, the mental. And we're bringing all of that back here into the earth. I must admit that it took me a while to kind of integrate that and to try and make sense, like, so exactly, how does that work? And I tend to think of then the interplanetary experiences is that they are like schools, and it could be the Mercury school, it could be the Venus school, and similar to when we go off on a holiday somewhere. You know, like you're going to the Caribbean, it's got a very special energy. You've got, margaritas, and you've got, palm trees, and you've got beaches, and so forth. And all together, it's got a very special energy, but a special feel. And so when you come back here to the United States, you recollect, oh yeah, the Bahamas, Mediterranean is yet another energy over there with with different types of foods and cultures and languages and so forth, and they all have their flavors. And it's similar as when we talk about Mercury or Venus or Jupiter, and we bring that back, And so those people who are, let's say, naturally intellectually inclined, they like ideas, they like information. Have you been to Mercury? Those people who like beauty, aesthetics, style, home decorating, more of the feminine, intuitive sorts of things. We've got a Venusian here. And that soul had a period of time, an environmental experience there on the dimension or the environs of Venus or Jupiter or Mercury, bringing that back here and then sharing that with us other humans. It's a fascinating journey. I call it, the adventure of life. And we're all part of it. And sometimes when we just think about, oh man, I got to pay my bills, I had a flat tire in my car, is this the adventure of life? No, it's just some little irritating, stuff, that rubs you perhaps the wrong way. It's really quite exciting, and it's a bigger picture, and it involves a lot of time and various past lives and a lot of fabulous experiences that sometimes only in retrospect was it fabulous. Kicking and screaming all the way to enlightenment. So, in a nice summation of some of the Edgar Cayce things, and I'll be talking about some other things too, but to kind of boil it down, why are we here from the Cayce perspectives? Number one, know thyself. Not so easy, but important. Know thyself. Number two, accept yourself, which is not the same thing as knowing yourself. Accepting yourself. Number three, appreciate thyself. Wow, it's all building on this one thing. And Cayce says that is not so easy to do. Appreciating yourself. And from there, to evolve. To grow in all the ways possible. And then we have what's called the active karma that you can incorporate and use in your desire to know yourself and to evolve. And that is the golden rule. It's an active choice and action to do better, to do good in your life and with those around you, following the golden rule. And where is it going? What is it all about? Why should we be doing all of these things? It's back to a Hindu perspective again. We are heading all back to the one. We are going back to the Godhead. We're reuniting with the great ocean. And that's the wonderful journey of it all. There are methods of discovery, with all of this. And through dreams, we're communicating with our higher selves. And Cayce also said that with dreams, we're going into the fourth dimension every now and then, which is the Venusian dimension. Fascinating. But we're getting information that will help us to understand and give us some pointers, some ideas, some advice, and even predictions that can come from our dreams, paying attention to our dreams. How many of you are dream following your dreams. It's been important. Yeah, very good. Nice. And deja vu. There are many levels to deja vu, but this is yet another way that we are getting to know ourselves. And I've got a couple of pet theories about deja vus, but some of it is connected to the Michael Newton Life Between Life work that I have done and studied. And that is, in the spiritual world, before we're incarnated here upon the earth, we practice some things in the spiritual world. It's a bit like psychodrama, or drama therapy, where we play these different roles, and then we come back, to the earth. We're born, and then we're going to be meeting those same characters that we interacted with up there in the spiritual world. And when we get into that particular scene, wearing the costumes, then we go, oh, deja vu. I've been here before. I know this. I know this person. I know this scene. And indeed, you did that. You do remember it. It is important. And typically when people have had a deja vu, I remind them, pay attention to the week before and the week after. Because it's a magical time, and you're in a particular place where you can get a lot of information. How many of you have experienced deja vu? Oh my goodness, very good. Very nice. My mother told me about a deja vu experience, and I was like 10, 11, 12. And when I was a child, we lived in France, and she was driving the car, going through a village she had never been to before, and she knew that when she turned that corner into this old village, she knew what was going to be around that corner and what was going to be in the middle of that square. Sure enough, she drives over there, boom, there it was. She had been there before. She had a deja vu experience, and I don't think it was like that idea from above, but it was like, she had a past life in that village, and that was perhaps one reason why we were over there at that time. Another idea that I've got here about the deja vu, this is a little bit of a fantasy of mine. I'm not sure if it's really true, but so imagine that it's like you're dead, and you've been incarnated 200 years from now. You have a past life regression, and you're remembering yourself now. Got that? So when I do a past life regression, we don't go and recollect an average day. It's going to be something significant. It's going to be a special time. And so I'll ask once we arrive in that past life recollection. So, what's around you? What are you doing? Are you ready to make a decision? Are you going to meet someone? Because it's probably an important time. So imagine that your future self is having a recollection of you here right now, and then there is that moment that is say, oh yeah, here we are. I've got him. Yep, here we go. Oh, what is this ARE thing? I see a building, and very likely you'll have a deja vu. But it's coming from your future self, recollecting back to you right now. And as I said before, if that's true, then again, the week before, week after, this time is probably significant. We don't recall just anything. So you're having a deja vu experience, and pay attention to what's going on. Not only to the deja vu experience itself, But, the people around you right now, the ideas, the plans, and so forth, it's all probably very important. And another theory I have, these ideas just come, is God is kind of glancing around the universe with the big eye, and just with a little glance, God's eyes, God's gaze is upon you, dear soul. Mystical experience, deja vu, like, what was that? And in those instances, it doesn't have to be a near-death experience. It could be, oh, God was just gazing at me, and I go, oh, just lifted me up. That's grace. That's expansion. And I wish for as many as you want to gaze. You just keep on gazing. Yes, sir. I've been working for many years here on the what first I described as a tri-union session, body, mind, and spirit. And I wanted to integrate in a hypnotic sense what we are doing, how we are interacting, what are the different levels of where we are at and where do we want to go. And so I kind of developed this tri-union session. And then I always had to explain tri-union to people. And so then I changed the title to a trans-personal journey. And it's essentially using the same techniques, hypnotic techniques, relaxation techniques, that I would use in preparing someone for a past life regression or a life between life session. But once you get into that place, and this is where my clients taught me, I was like, I didn't come up with this. They brought Stephen along. They get to that place where they're in touch with their soul, they're in touch with the inspiration, and they say, we're not going to go to a past life regression. No, we're not going to do that right now. I said, well, what are we going to do? Where we want to go? and they say, there is an issue when I was 7 years old. And that's been bugging me. And the conscious mind did not know that. But when they let go, when they got in touch with the spark, with the soul knew that this is what you really needed to take a look at. And so then it turned more into a therapeutic, holistic, spiritually led healing. And that was the transpersonal journeys. And at that point, we're also playing with time very often, recognizing that time is a dimension. We've already talked about that. But in the spiritual world, I have seen many times that they can go back and forth in different times, and it's always the present to them. Okay, to us it's like, oh, that was a long time ago. It's like, no, it's happening right now. And so using that as a therapeutic tool, one can go into your past life, but you can also go into your present life, when you're 10, 11, 12. And let's deal with something right there. And in the now time, deal with it, release it, heal it, let it go, forgive it, release, detach, whatever you need to do. And oftentimes I'll just escort them to this time and place and say, well, guys, you know what to do. You know how to take care of things. And I've had many great insights and experiences, again, from my many clients who brought me to the party, who showed me an important thing or two about this. A big thing connected to that are what I call the cords of connection. And these are oftentimes those family member connections that can be seen intuitively as a rope or a string, sometimes a chain, from father to child, mother to daughter, whatever, But there are these cause and effects, there are these connections in which someone is dragging themselves ever since then, or they're schlepping someone, or they are bound, duty bound with some sort of family tradition, or it could go into incest or molestation or all kinds of sorts of things that is way beyond a child. And then there are, once we're in that stage and we are connecting with the higher self, having an opportunity to heal something very big, very important at that time. I oftentimes have the person imagine, recognizing that this is more than just imagination, because you're talking to the soul, which is not bound by our time. So we go into, here's the 10-year-old, here's the perpetrator, I'll just say that for now. And yeah, here's the issue, and one thing that we're going to do is that we're going to intervene. This is an intervention. And I want either your higher self, your spirit guide, or you today, 2020, to go back there and you're going to protect that 10-year-old. You're going to take care of that child. Let's do it. Go. And as a therapeutic model and tool, I've had many great breakthroughs with that. And it's oftentimes a kind of a surprise, suddenly in a room in the cellar 35 years ago with 2 individuals, now there's 3. And the perpetrator is surprised. Great. Get out of here. And again, one can say, okay, that incident really happened. You can't change the incident, but you can change the outcome. You can shift the perspective. You can have a new paradigm about what's going on, and that's also very healing. The other thing that I do on this level is, again, those chords of connection. Again, here's the 10-year-old, here's the perpetrator, and it could be like a thick cord, and I feel it in my solar plex, or here it is in my shoulder, or, okay, got it. Are you ready to cut it? Are you ready to cut or dissolve these bonds, these cords, these chains? Are you ready now? Usually they say yes. Why would they say no? But okay, now we're ready, and oftentimes there can be the spirit guide there. Sometimes Archangel Michael shows up with the sword. Whoever wants to come on. Let's do it. Let's free the child. Let's free this person, this personality, so that then simultaneously the present self, the now self, is also freed. Yay. Yay. So it can go in many different directions, and these are just a couple of techniques that I've worked with over the time. I've worked a lot in Europe, and I was an expat over there for many years, and I especially was drawn to the German-speaking lands, Austria, Germany, Switzerland, and I recognized only after I had been there, because I started visiting over there in my early 20s, and I wasn't really into past lives at the time. But later on, I figured out, I've been there 3 times, 3 significant past lives in the German-speaking lands, which is why it was familiar, why, especially around the Alps, I go, I know this place, It's more than a deja vu. It's like, this is home, this is very familiar. How many of you have experienced like familiar places, locations? Yeah? Mm-hmm. Again, one of the signs that I would look for, that very likely your soul had been there. So in my earliest Austrian life, I was kind of like a a big Teutonic warrior. You know, big guy with a broadsword, and I just saw this image of this guy just swinging this big sword, and he was killing, and happily so. And he was good at his job, and he was, you know, out there fighting the good fight. And then at around the age 30, I or he converted to Christianity. And then I started killing people for Jesus.
Use your talents, huh?
Productive.
Transition.
But the stronger lives that I had in the German-speaking lands were as monks and scribes, to the point where this image of there I was in like a cold stone cellar, transcribing the Bible in those very nice, beautiful, intricate ways, but like the drudgery of it, which basically stopped me from writing in this life. And it took me years to get past that so that I could finally publish, because I equated from more than one life as a scribe of like, writing is drudgery. Writing is boring, it's cold, it's dank. They're not even my words, not my ideas. I'm writing what I'm told. So yeah, it took me a long time to heal that, to get over it, to finally graduate from those old things. And so I consider my books also as my graduation ceremony in the written form. Took a while. One of the interesting things that I found, however, in Germany was that there were a lot of advanced souls being born in Germany since 1940. Advanced souls. And there was so much pain. It damaged all of Europe. And it was time to bring in the higher souls, the healing souls. They had their work cut out for them, and they still do. But we've got now the European Union. You can go from country to country to country, and you don't have to show a passport. They've got a common currency, and they're really trying hard, even though they're humans, to have a better world, a place where they say, you know, we had 2 world wars too. Let's find another way. You know, and the old souls, we're talking about young souls, old souls, the older souls really started to be born there, you know, to heal that, to fix that, to come up with different ways that, you know, we have to, or we're going to kill ourselves. They almost did. Yeah. And so if you travel at all, you travel anywhere in the world, you're going to meet Germans. Isn't that true? Have you noticed that, those who travel a lot? Yeah, they are everywhere. And they are part of a subgroup, very rare, that do not take personal pride in their recent national history.
I guess so.
So they are looking in other cultures for ideas, inspirations, things that they can adapt to. And so generally, they're really quite open and curious and looking around, learning all around the world. And great, bringing some of those different ideas then to Europe, which has really, really transformed itself since World War II. But you probably just want to hear about soulmates, right? I mean, that's why we're here, right? So Here is an interesting piece from Michael Newton. In a journey back to one's soul group, Michael Newton described a soul moving towards her soul group in spirit, feeling a hand reach out and touch her as she was passing. This came from another soul in another group who had been her lover 3 lifetimes back. He just wanted to say hello and wish her well. As above, so below. And all those different ways that those stars up there in the sky are having their different constellations, whether it be a binary star, a single star, a lone star, a grouping, a small galaxy, where they're really tight together. Those same types of formations of relationships are also found down here, because we're getting souls incarnated from all over the place, which is perhaps helping to explain why we've got 7 billion people plus. I mean, there's so many people being born down here. I mean, what's that plan? But again, vast stars, and billions of stars, and a lot of very curious souls, a lot of young souls are incarnating right now. And they're interested, what's going on down over here. I heard there's a cool place called Earth. They got French fries.
I'm just confused because I thought there were a lot of wise souls, like rainbow children, and that's.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But you're saying there's some really young and some that are.
That's right. We've got the whole mixture here. We've got the the whole spectrum, and there's a majority of young souls, but that could mean, I'm just going to play with numbers here. That could be 6 billion, but that still means we got 1 billion. That's a lot of people. Of advanced souls or intermediate souls, adult souls, and so forth. But yeah, it's a complex thing. But yeah, thank goodness. Like I said, in Germany,
That would be advanced.
we've got some advanced souls coming in. Not all of them. Yeah, and we do need more. But that's also part of the group lessons, culturally and politically. That they had to learn the hard way in Europe. They had to get their nose bloodied a couple of times, to wake up. And we in the United States, we've been pretty lucky, with these 2 oceans on both sides. Kind of far away from stuff, so we can interfere with them, but it's harder for them to interfere with us. And so do we, and this is now a big question, do we collectively have to get our nose bloodied to grow up? Do we have to that? Does it have to be like that? It doesn't. But it certainly does look like it sometimes. Yeah. As an astrologer, I look at these cycles and these times, and when things are supposed to happen, I just look at my calculations and say, yep, it's happening just right on time. But then there's other times I say, this can play out in a couple of ways. And one can, let's say, learn the hard way, or you can learn the easy way. Which way would you like to learn today? And it's amazing how many people say, oh, I actually don't want to learn. Oh, why should I? I like the French fries. And so people can stay where they're at, the classic status quo. And this is just fine. It's been working for me. And this, unfortunately, when you take a look at historical perspectives, cultural things, and things leading to wars, when they say, yeah, everything seems to be pretty fine because I got my peace, and the war over there, or the coronavirus, or, the refugee things, it's far away. It doesn't bother me at all. Forgetting that we are all one. And what did Jesus say about that? Lest you do that to the least of my brethren, you do that unto me. And that is really, we are all one. I had this personal experience in a life between life session. And at the time, it was like, of course, this is what I'm doing, and now I'm doing this. And then later on, I go, wait a minute, what was I doing? So anyway, it was after a past life death, leave the body, go to the spirit world. The life was a bit difficult. So I go into this large room, and there were kind of like these beehive hexagonal chambers in this space, and it was a rejuvenation place. And my spirit took my soul off, placed it in one of these chambers. 8 minutes later, 8 years later, took out the nice, fresh soul, appraised it, put it on, and off we go flying in the sky. And I go, whoa, cool, but the spirit and the soul separate? The spirit, which is the animating spark, is the oneness with God. That is what we all have in common. That is the one. And without that animating spark, without the spirit, we wouldn't even be alive. And the soul is the personality, the persona attached to and enlivened, sparked by the spirit, that then has its own individual life lessons, past lives, experiences, the soul family, and so forth. But what an interesting slight variation that I got in that one little session that really fed me a lot and had me kind of relook at some things that I took for granted. Yes?
Do you think we carry that soul into our oneness with God?
I believe that that soul, because we're all differentiating, we're all having our individual experiences, I think we're delighting God with what our soul is learning, including some unpleasant things. Because as it has been experienced here in spirit, when it's all light and love, you need to also understand the contrast. Sadness, hurt, depression, and things like that. It's also part of the yin-yang. The night, the light, the dark, the sun. And God is kind of like feeling the existence of everything through each and every one of us, as Cayce would say, the corpuscles within the body of God. Yeah. So we're sending signals back up, and so let's try our best to send some good signals up there. But yeah. And I believe, however, that there will be a time when the personality will be so evolved, might take some time, that it will resemble more and more the pure spirit, until they will be like, two peas in a pod, as it were.
They're congruent.
Yeah, congruent, vibrationally aligned. And then the next step would be like uniting with the oneness. In the search for love and spirit, because you're here for the soulmate part, there are these contracts. And some of the contracts are created because of the past life karma. And sometimes you've got to fix something, you've got to mend something was done wrong, and you have to have a payback. And I can't tell you how many of my clients, when they had a child, that it disrupted the family because a new person, a new personality from a past life karmic dance just came into the family unit. And I've seen some marriages end. I've seen tensions. I've seen like, well, that's the end of our love life when the child is born. And those soul contracts are bringing forth the wisdom, the understanding, the greater perspectives from whatever the dynamic happened to be. And so a couple of examples of that would be, it's an interesting story because the woman that I was working with, she was kind of an advanced soul to the point where she found both sexes attractive. And so she could go lesbian, she can go heterosexual. She was interested in the spirit. She was interested in the person. But she was with a fellow who she wasn't so fond of right now. And when she went into a past life, she was a young man in England, and he was of a noble aristocratic family, but he hated his mother. And he got his inheritance, however. His father died, and he was about 17 years old. And he was going to, see you later, This was, I think, in the 1700s. And then he took a ship down to Spain, and he had his inheritance so he can take care of himself, and he was wanting to study medicine. And so then he became a doctor. He went to school down in Spain. And he would have these in the night discussions with his fellow students. So they would discuss things, and he hung out with the guys, the other students. Sometimes they would sleep over. And he enjoyed his life. And I was thinking at the time, it's like, this is 1700s, and he's still being discreet about being a homosexual, from that long a period of time. It's like, he was very careful how he worded things, very, very interesting. So then he finishes his schooling, he becomes a doctor, he goes to England, he practices medicine. And he says, well, of course I'm practicing medicine. You can see I have a wig. So, oh, well, I guess that was the sign back then, Learning all kinds of cultural things as I do these sessions. But then he had an opportunity to, again, meet with his mother. He still didn't like her. But he had a better connection with his sister. And he enjoyed his life. And he periodically had a partner, and he became more well-known as a doctor, and he worked in surgery, and so in many different ways he was quite pleased with himself. And then one day he found himself in the hospital, and he was bleeding in the belly. He had been shot, he was dying, and he was regretting it immediately there in the hospital room. Why did I get into that duel? He had just a fight with this fellow who was an angry husband who blamed the doctor on his wife dying. And then he besmirched his honor, and so he was not going to take that. And so they had a duel, and he died. As soon as he dies, he says, I could have been a little bit more patient. This was a grieving husband. This honor thing, So again, very quickly, you leave the body, you leave the personality, and then the consciousness comes in. You go, oh yeah, here's the big picture. I was so involved with that personality that I forgot to be big. I forgot to forgive. I forgot. So the man who killed him, he says, okay, yeah, he was angry with me. He called me out. We had the duel. Now I'm dead. And now, being born as the woman who's my client, her son was the man who killed him. They don't get along together. There's some tensions. But the karmic connection, which is a killing, that tied them together. And they are going to spend some time together. And then the love of the mother to the child is part of the healing. It's going to take some time because in essence they are on two different places, but at the same time, they both were in grief about their families. And the other interesting thing about this particular life is that my client, this woman, she had a very good mother. And it was through her having a good mother that helped to heal the old life from 300 years ago. That he could say, oh yeah, a good mother. Well, it took him still a while to get used to that idea, but it's like the seeds are planted. And here we have now a karmic connection of a parent-child, and the reason why they're together is because one killed the other one. Now, anybody who knows anything about statistics and homicide, where is the most likely place you're going to get killed? The family. And from my perspective, from my experiences, I go, I now know why. They could have been enemies. And if you kill someone, you have to pay it back, oftentimes with bringing them to life. And that's to be a parent. Huh? Yeah. What also gets very sticky is if they were lovers or married in a past life, but now they're parent-child. That is difficult. But perhaps all of us have known stories about that. Really, this is my favorite child, or I love that boy, or, or it's like, maybe you're spending a little bit too much time with that kid. But from the past life perspective, of course, it's a totally natural thing. That's the love that we have. So yeah, one of the reasons why we forget our past lives is because we should forget some of those past lives. Mm-hmm. You don't need this, this married couple here in your present dynamic with your family. That's too much, However, you can keep the love, the respect, the appreciation for each other, and how you're going to grow together. And that's what it's, more about.